Okay, so you're thinking about moving to the Sacramento area, but you need to sell your house first. This is very much something that needs to be done before you jump in here. Today's scenario addresses this common thing that we're seeing in the Sacramento area. As always, I got Aaron. Aaron, how's it going, my friend?
What's going on, man? Hope you're doing well. Just trying to keep up with this crazy real estate market that we keep living in here. What do we got to talk about today, man?
Couple du jour right now, we're talking about Bill and Mary Watson. Okay, so right now, as far as Bill goes, they are married, check. They are in software sales, boom, great credit score, 768, W2, yeah, nice. But a majority of their income comes from what's called, God, I can't even think of the word.
Commission?
Basically like commission. There we go. Oh,
okay.
Man, it's been a long Monday already. Salary gross is 300, so they're making a good amount of money. In the bank account, they only have $10,000 because the Bay Area is expensive and people are spending like crazy. DTI, relatively low as well, too. Okay, so we got additional stuff is they need to sell their house first. So a lot of their house is going to go into their down payment for the house that they're going to be buying in the Sacramento area. Mary is onboarding with a new company as well, too. How does that factor in? Additional, they want a pool. Who doesn't when they're moving to the Sacramento area? Right. And the other one is additional, maybe they're thinking about renting. Would renting be a better situation in this market? Or should they pull a trigger on a house? Woo, can't even keep the pen together. So let's get into it. Aaron, what do you think?
Yeah, man. Well, the credit's dialed, not surprised that they're in software sales coming from the Bay Area. I feel like, it's like 1 out of 5 or more that I talk to are doing that. They make bank, especially for, Sacramento region income. They're going to be ballers out here in the Bay Area. They're kind of baby ballers out there, I suppose. But, the cost of living out there, along with, daycare and child expenses and all that stuff, it quickly eats into a big fat salary like that. So it doesn't surprise me that, they've only got 10 grand saved up. I talk to a lot of people that are in that exact scenario where you would think that they would just have tons and tons of money saved up because they make a lot of money. But you got to think about their actual scenario and put yourselves in their shoes. And you're like, wow, it's ridiculously expensive just to like live a normal life, not even, luxury out there. And so you factor in that along with kids, which I have 2 small kids and, I always feel like they're eating me out of house and home nonstop. So, not having a big down payment, not a surprise. And that's also not a deal killer. I mean, they're not alone on that. Having, a little bit of money saved up, the low debt to income ratio, that obviously is going to, give them a lot of flexibility in what they're eligible for. But as far as things go, I mean, really, from what I can, tell so far, the biggest, kind of piece to the puzzle that'll, need to be figured out is, the down payment, which, that's, right. That's more so like where you're going to come into play with, helping them get their household and figuring out what the net, their net proceeds would be from that condo that they owe. Right.
Yeah. And that's the hardest part. Cause I mean, when you have a situation like this, there's a few scenarios you can do, right? One is you can do one of those things where you sell the home and you do like a 3-month rent back because the market's still hot in the Bay Area. You might be able to get that done if you can kind of negotiate it with the people that are like, with the agent down there. A lot of times we work deals out there in the Bay Area too, because we like to simultaneously make sure no one's homeless. So working with us sometimes to sell your house in the Bay Area so we can put the parts together. Sometimes it makes sense, but sometimes you're working with your Bay Area agent. Either way, it's like we have to get on the same page. We're on the same team. And for the most part, what that means is what type of market it is down there. I mean, do we do the 3-month rent back? Do we do a contingent offer, which in the summer is not great because the market is still super hot. And the problem that I have, my clients, all my clients have the same exact problem. They all have good taste. So the one house that they want tends to everyone else wants it. So it's a hard thing. So for me, a contingent deal is definitely workable if a house maybe has gone through maybe about a couple weeks and it still hasn't like closed, right? I mean, there's an opening as far as like maybe a contingent offer would work. Now with the contingent offer, you're going to have to kind of give away a little bit more stuff, right? You won't be as sweet of a deal as you're doing if you're going all cash or if you're going with conventional FHA financing. It just doesn't work that way. A lot of people realize that selling a house, even in the Bay Area, is an easy task, and that adds another contingency on the deal. So a lot of times realtors can be really turned off by it. So I always tell my clients, don't hit the ones that are popping on Friday that have 1 million views on Zillow, that are their open houses are blown up, because we don't know exactly how they're going to do. Look at the houses that they've been there for a week or 2 weeks, and those are the ones that a realtor might be up for a conventional or a contingent offer. Now, that being said, you also have to understand that, like, because of low inventory, it's hard for people to put their faith in the market saying, you know what, I'm going to do a 3-month rent back because I have such faith that I'm going to find a house during summertime when there's no inventory and everyone wants to move to Sacramento. So it kind of leads you to a whole situation. And we work with people on both sides of this. People who are thinking I'm going contingent and that's just how I want. It gives me more security. I'm not going to be homeless. And then we go with the other people who are like, you know what? I think 3 months, I have faith in the market. We're going to have it. We're okay with that. Let's do the rent back. And let's sell the house. So that's the hard part. And that's a conversation we have with our clients. We really do like the rent back option because it gives us a lot more leverage in our market. But we understand both. But, I talked to Bill, I talked to Mary, and they're like, you know what? We're okay with the rent back. So we got ourselves 3 months. Yes, it is during summertime, but they plan on basically selling their house. They're probably going to pull in. You saw Mary and Bill. What do you think they're going to pull in? What do you think they need, or what they can put in?
It looks like they're going to get somewhere in the range of 70 to 80,000 net.
Okay.
From their departing residents. So they're going to have enough money for their down payment. In terms of the net proceeds basically covering the down payment and their closing costs to acquire the house. It really is just like it's a timing game, like you said, with, doing the rent back thing. They're kind of, the clock is ticking and, they've got a finite amount of time to locate a property. The other thing too that I'm thinking about is, they want a pool, which, there's wants and needs, obviously. And, everybody kind of prioritizes things a little bit differently, but it's May. And although this last weekend we had freakish weather with like a tsunami down, rain and, it was really, it was cold. I kept reminding my wife and kids as they were bouncing off the walls with not a lot to do, that enjoy it while it lasts, because next week it's going to be 90 and then pretty quick it'll be like 100 plus, and you feel like you're in a blow dryer. So my point being is that not only are we in the spring buying season where a lot of people are trying to basically execute on their transactions because school's about to be out, we got like maybe 2-3 weeks, maybe max 4 weeks left of school. So not only are they going to be competing with everybody else out there that's looking for that stuff, but they're also fighting for a pool during pool season, and not every house has a pool. So it's just like there's going to be less and less options in that wheelhouse. So they're going to have to get really competitive with their offer in order to basically win, right?
Well, here's another thing too. They're going to definitely need to be competitive. Pool people go crazy for a swimming pool in summertime in Sacramento. They see the pool, the kids fall in love with the pool, and people do all sorts of crazy stuff. The thing also too is that if you do have an offer, the higher down payment you can put into it if you're competing definitely is something to keep. Like, how can I say this? Like, let's say, for example, there's 3 offers in and each one are the same price. One is coming in with 20%, one is coming in for 10, one is coming with 5. Normally, realtors will favor the 20% just because it's a stronger offer. It's more like, okay, they're going to be putting more net money down, and 5%, 10%. Although people can do what they can do, they tend to be a little bit like a realtor will look at that and go, they're only putting they're only going to do this. It makes them a little bit of a weaker offer as well too. So we also have to factor that in. Now, here's the thing. Also, one of the things I also want to say about these scenarios that Aaron and I are running. For example, like let's say you find Bob the realtor here in Sacramento, and this is the stuff you're telling Bob to do. Not all realtors, not all lenders are created equal. This is how Aaron and I work. So if you kind of listen to these videos that Aaron and I are doing and go to Jim or Bob, the realtor here, and you say, this is what we're doing, he might not understand at all what you're talking about
Sure.
or be able to execute on these plans like we are. Like we've done a lot of deals together, and both Aaron and I are some of the tops in our field in Sacramento. So understand this, like, and have this as a little bit of an idea when you're watching these videos that not all realtors are created equal, not all lenders are, and you have to really kind of think outside the box to make kind of these things happen. So continue on with the video. So Aaron, as far as the what do you think as far as like 3%, 5%, if we can sell their house and give them a 3-month rent back?
Well, it's going to depend on, ultimately where they want to land. The town of Folsom has come up often in conversation, and if a pool is really going to be what they're after, then they're going to have to go resale. And the resale market's tight. So, they're definitely, going to need to be competitive with their offer, which includes the down payment. But we are able to, we got a lot of ways that we can structure their financing. We can split it up into 2 loans, maybe do a first mortgage and a home equity line of credit second if needed. It all just kind of depends on ultimately what's going to get them the best deal, while simultaneously, putting them in a position to where they can win. The one thing that I would caution on the rent back is that anytime you do a rent back of more than 60 days, whoever the buyer is on the other side of it, they're going to have a problem potentially getting financing, because basically that's no longer a short-term rental situation. So there's a whole bunch of things that they'll have to, ultimately consider to really figure out what's going to make the most sense for them. But in their price point, they're most likely going to end up being around a 10 to a max 20% down payment based off of what they got with their proceeds and how we could potentially structure their loan.
Okay, so what do you think is like, as far as their pre-approval, if you handed it to me today, what would that look like? Like, what kind of price point are we thinking?
I would say that you're going to want to stay within 900 or less in order to basically fit within their available funds that they have for down payment, closing costs, all that stuff. And then obviously, even though they make a bunch of money, they got kids and expenses and all that stuff. And so they don't want to have a, insanely unaffordable mortgage payment. Who wants that? So, fitting everything within their budget. If you capped them out at 900 at the max, we'd be in a good spot.
Okay. So one of the things to note too, and this is a little bit like of a pro tip, a lot of the houses that you're going to look at, if they're empty or if they're staged, chances are they're going to want to do a really quick escrow. If you go into a house where it's basically lived in, there's a chance that they might need to stay there for a longer amount of time. So if you're someone that has to stay under like the 60-day cap for a rent back on your place, like that's just something to note. I mean, these are little tells that if you walk into a house, for example, if there are people living there, there's probably going to be some sort of rent back in place. If you see a garage full of stuff, and you're thinking to yourself, man, that's going to take a while. So just to keep these little added things in your like rear view when you're like putting in offers. And when you're actually out there seeing houses, maybe open houses, and you look around, you're like, man, this is giving me a lot of stuff to move out. Just know that, like, a house that's staged, a house that's like empty, those are easy ones. Those can be done really, really quick. Now, Brilliant. the other aspect of this though is if they're thinking, 45 days, we kind of want to get in there and quick. I mean, there's just ways we can maneuver this a little bit, but we need to kind of think outside the box on this one, because this is not an easy transaction. This is definitely something that is going to require like strategy sessions, I guess you can call it, to see how we can get this done. That's going to be one. Go for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things that we looked at potentially, there's a lot of these buy before you sell programs. And although we don't have enough time, tonight to dive into, the individual, guidelines for each one, but essentially, the way that they all work in one way or another is you basically are receiving a commitment to purchase your departing residence. So like for Bill and Mary, it's the condo that they have in the Bay Area, from a accredited financial institution. You probably heard of like Open Door, something like
Yep.
that, although they have a pretty bad name. There's a lot of variations of different types of buy before you sell programs. Like at New Way Mortgage, we offer, I think we have 6 different options or something like that, maybe 7 different options. It's not a one size fits all, but it was actually something that we looked at for these guys, and ultimately it didn't make sense for them. But the benefit would have been, if they would have gone down that road, would have been basically a non-contingent offer. Where you're basically, one of the challenges that you have, Mark, is you're basically, when you're trying to structure an offer for somebody, you want it to be competitive, right?
Yep.
And one of the boxes that you got to be able to check is, well, how quick can you close? And if your offer is contingent upon the sale of a home that you already own, well, unless all the other offers are not, in the same boat, you're not going to be on the same playing field. So the whole buy before you sell thing is a potential strategy that can be deployed. The downside to those is, there's no free lunch, obviously, right? Like
Yep.
it's not like Open Door, or, whatever Lightstream, whatever company, that offers these services. They're just doing it out of the kindness of their heart. They have a profit model. And also, a lot of times they don't value the property the same way that the free market would. So you're not getting as much bang for your buck, right?
Yep.
So because of the kind of the limited amount of equity that these guys had available in their condo, it just didn't make sense to utilize one of those buy before you sell programs so that they could not be contingent. If they would have gone that route, the other problem they would have had is they just wouldn't have had enough money basically to make the transaction work. So for these guys, they're best just doing what you've got planned out for them, where it's going to be a contingent offer, and make it work that way.
Well, here's the thing also too about some of these programs, like the Zillow programs or the iBuyer programs too, is, and this is one thing, is like if you're relying on them to close a deal, it puts you in a for example, like let's say you're saying, okay, we got an offer from Zillow, we're good to go. Based on this one, we're going to put an offer in on a house in Sacramento that we really, really love. Now, let's say, for example, Zillow goes to the house and all of a sudden they say, hey, we need about $40,000 in repairs to this house. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, hold on, you didn't mention this, because they do have their inspection contingencies and everything
Totally.
too. It leverages you on a platform that is not 100% like slam dunk. I mean, even with someone buying your house too, it is a contingency and the deals do fall out. So just be very, very wary of working with like a big company that's an iBuyer, and know exactly what the bottom line is. And if you are going to go with a Zillow, whoever doing that, make sure they weigh the inspection, the appraisal, and even the loan contingencies and make it like a cash offer so that you have more of a slam dunk deal as opposed to waiting for these contingencies that could bring additional costs. And all of a sudden you're like, man, we're getting dinged 40,000. We already we already are in contract in a house in Sacramento. We already put our deposit in and we love the house. And now all of a sudden they're telling us we need to put in $40,000 for dry rot. This is horrible. So just get the offer on your house as close to cash as you can, as close to a slam dunk, because it is like one of those things where for some reason you decide not to go through with the deal on the other side, like you will lose a house that you're in contract with. Will you lose your earnest money?
Totally.
It depends on what realtor you work with, but at the same time, just be very wary of that. So this is an interesting one though. Go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the only value that those iBuyer, platforms or the buy before you sell platforms provide is speed. Everything else is a downside pretty much. Like Open Door, for instance, I actually enjoy getting my, I think I get it once a week or something like that, because I'm in the industry. I want to see what other things are, what other companies are doing or whatever. So I have my own house in there. And I always get like a monthly, or I think it's a weekly update of like what my Open Door offer is. And just this last weekend, I was looking at it and I decided to actually look at like the terms and conditions. And they've actually updated their stuff, and they charge a 5% convenience fee basically, in addition to, all the knockoffs that they do after they do the inspections and all that stuff. So you get like what looks like a decent offer initially, But then after
Oh,
all
yeah.
the inspections and all that stuff, they reduce it down to the bare bone, and then they're still charging you what you'd pay a professional real estate agent to market your house at fair value and all that stuff. So I know I kind of went off on a sidebar there, but
I
thought
like
that was
that though.
important to point out.
Well, I think
The thing that
go
you
for it.
mentioned at the end with the is buying or renting a better idea. I think that's a really interesting conversation. You ready to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, okay, here's the thing for them. Like if they're going to go contingent, then I think the whole buying and renting thing is kind of like out the door. But I did
Sure.
talk to Mary and Bill, and basically, they said, "Hey, look, what do you think about this option?" Which is something that I go through a lot with people. They say, "What if we sell the house, we give ourselves a 3 month rent back,
Mm-hmm.
and then we start looking for a house? And what if we don't find the house?" I love this rental option if you can't find the house that you're in love with, right? Let's say, for
Sure.
example, you're like, you know what? Look, we don't want to do the contingent offer. We know we're going to be put in a bad situation. All the houses popping up on Friday are gone Tuesday. Those are the houses we really love. I like the option of actually, and I was talking to Bill and Mary, and I was like, what if we do this? We get you a 3 month rent back because we'll be the one selling your house, let's just say. And we get that, we add that to the deal in your house in the Bay Area, right? So, okay, we got that etched in. So we close your deal and we got 3 months. And even before you close it, you'll be out here looking for houses. We can't really put anything into motion until the money's in the bank. But once you close, the money's in your bank, we can start throwing down offers. So now we got 3 months, maybe not 3 months, actually, maybe about 2 months because we need to make the offer work and them to move in. So we got about 2 months of a deadline to kind of find them something they fall in love with. So I love the idea of also working with people so they have the backup rental. So they have like the idea of like, we got 2 months, let's find our dream house. Now, if we don't, we can jump into a rental, maybe a 6 months rental and just wait out the summer and then head into like maybe the end of this year, which I think is a smart decision because here's the thing in real estate in general, and you know this as well as I do. When school hits back to session, we go through a lull. And then
Sure.
during the winter months and the holiday months, everyone's having fun and everything too. And there's a little bit of a lull too. So I do like that time a little bit better for buying than summer. But I would give the summer a little bit of a chance and just say, look, our envelope is 2 months. As soon as we sell, money's in the bank. We've got our 3 month rent back in our place in the Bay Area. 2 months, we look for a house. As soon as the 2 months, if we can't do it, we sashay into a rental for 6 months and then we start
Mm-hmm.
focusing on looking maybe towards the end of the year. But in 2 months, if we can find something that we really, really love, we have the cash in the bank, we can make a competitive offer and we can get our house. So I like that. That works really well for me. What do you think of that?
I like many aspects of it. The one thing that I feel like I don't necessarily dislike because I don't also, you and I talk about this all the time. It's time your life, not the market, right?
Yeah.
So, the right time to buy a house is when it's the right time for you to buy a house, not like because some mortgage or real estate person's like, now's the time to buy or whatever, right? So
100%.
if you're going to rent, whether it's 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, whatever it takes in order for you to be in the right spot for, now's the time for you to buy, I just have to caution you that understand the numbers. And although I have zero way to predict the future, I can only look at the past. And if you just look at Folsom, for instance, where Bill and Mary were focusing in on, year over year appreciation is more than double what the nation averages. It was 10.3% year over year home appreciation for Folsom. El Dorado Hills was like 20.2%. It's ridiculous, but it's super popular. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, Folsom's awesome. El Dorado Hills awesome. But there's a limited amount of inventory and there's a ton of people that want to live there. So if you are going to wait it out, you're going to rent for, call it 6 to 12 months. Just keep in mind that, assuming that the current trend continues, which based off of how much inventory is available and average days on market, it's still continuing. Keep in mind that like if you wait 6 months, odds are really good that, if the price, was $1 million today, it's going to be $1 million plus 5%. So $1,050,000. If you waited a year, it's going to be $1,100,000 or, whatever those numbers end up being. Right. So On an $800,000 home, you could end up paying almost $900,000, 880. If you waited a full 12 months and Folsom, experienced 10% appreciation like it did over the last 12 months. So if price, which some people say like price doesn't matter or whatever, that's BS. I mean, money always matters, price always matters. And so if waiting is, what's needed, that's great. Just understand that it's going to impact your monthly payment. It's going to impact the down payment. It's going to impact your property taxes, all of those things, because odds are, Bill and Mary are going to pay a whole bunch more 6 to 12 months from now than they would if they just did it now. Obviously, like buying in the the holiday season, you still are going to, it's not like home prices like crater during that time of the year. It's just you have less competition. So your odds of, getting into escrow, especially if you're willing to like go out in the rain or, around the holiday season or, whatever, your odds of winning the battle of, getting your offer accepted are far higher during that time, but you potentially are going to pay more. So food for thought on that. But, I still go back to what I started off with, that, like Mark and I always say, time your life, not the market. You gotta do it when it's right for you.
Well, that's the thing. Okay. Like time of life. But like, here's the thing. This is the biggest problem probably for their situation too, is the idea that they need to find that right house. You know what I mean? And what if the house doesn't pop up? And that's the thing. It's like, even if the timing is right, let's say you're moving to Sacramento, everything too. It's like, what is that line that needs to be drawn with, like, we're just settling and this isn't the house that we want, but we just want to buy something. Whereas like for me, I'm picky, man. I'm super picky. Like I'll spend like a year looking at Best Buy, finding reviews out of a TV. I'll do the same it took me like a year and a half to kind of figure out exactly the house that I was going to upgrade to. So for me, I'm very picky, but like, for me, there is a part of it that I say to myself, would these people kick them? Like, let's say you jump in the market and you just get whatever. It's not your dream house. Maybe it's not the square footage you want, everything too. Now, I get the fact things are appreciating, but at the end of the day, maybe a year down the road, let's say we're in the fives, let's just say, and I'm not saying we will be, but let's just say, are you kicking yourself because you didn't stick it out a little bit and find that dream house, and then you can refi, and then you're not moving, you're not anything, and you're in there? That's the biggest quandary that I have when I start thinking about this stuff. And I think to myself, I'm like, would I buy something that would all of a sudden you got that mentality of the Bay Area where people are like, I just got something. Like, I still don't think that's our market. I mean, for me, I wouldn't pull the trigger on something right now unless I was planning on be there for like 5 or 7 years, and definitely something that if I saw that, I always tell clients this, I'm like, if you find the house that you like and it gets you off Zillow, it's the right house. So I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think if anything, if they're just getting a house to jump in the market, would they be like, let's say 3 months down the road, all of a sudden the dream house pops up. It's been sitting for some reason for a week and a half. Are they kicking themselves for just grabbing something, holding on to it? Like, do you see what I mean? Like, that's one of the problems with this market. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that decision is easier to make depending on your life situation, kids, school, work, all that stuff. And also, some people have a tougher time moving. I have some clients that it's like they upgrade every 4 to 5 years, regardless of what's going on. That's just like how they roll. Whereas I got some people that, they're going to be in the house that they bought for their whole life. And that's how they're going to roll. So depending on, how open to change and willing to deal with some uncomfort while, because who likes moving? Moving sucks. Nobody likes moving. But that short-term discomfort could, equal, a better lifestyle or whatever. So I feel like if the potential horizon of you not being in the market is only a short timeline, 3-6 months, maybe 12 months, something like that, then renting and missing out on appreciation, not that big of a deal. But if it's one of those things where you're just going to be waiting for years and years, or the whole, everybody keeps talking about I'm going to wait for mortgage rates to come down. Well, mathematically, you're going to pay more by waiting because of home price appreciation And when you do the math on the loan, the taxes, all that stuff, you don't actually really save. And when
Yeah.
rates come down, it's going to be nasty out there. I honestly, it would be great for me because rates, when I'm a mortgage guy. So what happens when rates come down? I get to refinance everybody. But guess what? Refinances don't require my borrower to go out and like get into contract on a house. They already own the house. So it's a much easier, streamlined. I mean, we knock those things out in like a week or two. Whereas, buying, that's a, can be an arduous process, right? So
Oh, big
waiting
time.
for rates to come down, not only are you waiting to purchase something that's most likely going to cost more in the future, when borrowing costs come down, that brings people out of the woodworks. And so you're going to have a lot more competition, for me personally. So like I've been, waiting for my dream house. And although a couple of them have, come up, and honestly, if rates weren't as, high as they are right now, in addition to how cheap my existing housing expenses, I probably would have, pulled the trigger on one of them by now. But it's just like, it wasn't one of those where like, I still have my Zillow app on, right? So it wasn't like enough to keep me off. But, for me, one of the things that I've really come to terms with is like, I had my, like, what I thought was like my dream or whatever that I need. And I have, kind of chipped away at that a little bit, not given up, but maybe became more realistic with what's available out there.
Yeah.
Obviously you never know, in the course of us, having this conversation, there could have been a new listing that posted, and, it's finally the one, but odds are it's going to be, probably similar to the other ones, or, have its own pros and cons and all that stuff. And so short of, spending, multi-million dollar, custom construction and, just doing everything exactly the way that you want it, you're probably never going to find something that's like exactly what you want. So I feel like you got to kind of, lower the bar a little bit just to be realistic. And, you'll probably end up being a lot happier with the whole process too. Cause it is really frustrating when you look at houses and you're like, God, there's nothing out there. And it's like, well, that's not true. It's just that I'm being super picky basically. And that's good in certain ways, but it can also kind of hurt me. So, yeah, I feel like you got to kind of revisit your expectations if you're not finding what you're looking for.
Well, that's the thing with Bill and Mary. One of the things that we were talking about a little bit is extending the search parameters from Folsom, El Dorado to also Gold River, Fair Oaks, Orangevale, and Antolia. So there are options, but then again, it's like, like I said, hopefully this specific exercise and these people will honestly get you guys to understand that there's a lot of things that we can advise you on, like as far as strategies to get you in contract, different like loans, different amounts. But at the end of the day, it's going to be up to you guys. And what's worth it to you? Is the juice worth the squeeze on what? Like, are you someone who's super picky and wants to wait out the market for 6 months to find that dream house? Or are you someone who's looking to do it before the school starts up and you're not that picky and you just want something? And that's the thing. Every scenario that we run into, every client it's like, I was talking to Nikki on my team, and she's like, every single deal is different. And that's the thing to really keep in mind. I mean, like, it's just about working with teams like Aaron, like myself, that can kind of think outside the box and realize that everyone is different in their situation. Some people, they should buy. Some people, they should wait. Some people have great situations like Aaron, for example. And I guarantee you, if Aaron didn't have a great situation, a cheap situation to live in that was accommodating to his family, he probably would have already jumped in. But because his situation is so good that he's got to be like, well, I can afford to wait because I'm not really paying that much on this and everyone's still good. So every situation is different. And I guess that's my end thought on this video. It's just that Bill and Mary will make the move to Sacramento. Eventually they're going to be making the move. Now, whether they buy a house with a contingent deal, whether they buy a house after doing a rent back, whether they have to rent, there are various options and solutions to making them happy in the Sacramento area. And coming out of the Bay Area where they're like, it's almost impossible to get a house, believe you me, they will get a pool. What do you think, Aaron?
Oh, you got to get a pool. It's the switch will be flipped, and like in a week or two, it's gonna, we're gonna feel like we're in Arizona real quick here. So having a pool is awesome.
Yep. All right. Well, okay, guys, this is our scenario for the Monday. Next Monday, we'll come back with another scenario. And like I said, if you guys have any ideas, thoughts, or if you want us to throw out your scenarios, of course, we will use different names and everything too. Let us know offline. Send Aaron an email or me, and we'll talk a little bit about your scenario. This scenario, Aaron hit me this morning because he's like, man, I had like 3 people last week that were running this type of scenario. So this is something that throwing it up might be very useful to people, and hopefully it was. And like I said, if you guys have enjoyed this, like, subscribe, comment, and all that kind of fun stuff. And if you have questions specifically about this video, comment below or reach out to Aaron or myself. Aaron, any parting words?
Hey, thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you next week.
Guess what, guys? The video just ended. But don't worry, we have more videos just like that one right over there. And if you missed that red subscribe button during the course of the video, we got you covered right there. Hit that subscribe button. We promise to bring you some amazing content. We won't let you down. Now, if you're looking for a team in the Sacramento metro area to work with, we'd love to talk to you one-on-one. We always include a Zoom link down below, so book a time where we can talk to you a little one-on-one, find out exactly what your real estate needs are.